Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hello,
I'm
hello.
live on my side.
Great. Yeah, we are live here. Welcome, guys. Uh,
Great
I'll,
to great to see you.
yeah, good to see you. Sorry, I guess I'll start. I feel like I know the least about today's match and how it happened, but we are going to be doing a match today with David and Lefong. But let me ask you guys, what was the idea for the match? You guys want to play some training positions, right?
Yeah, I think David came up with the idea, which I thought was good. I usually play from the beginning, from the starting position against other streamers, but David had this idea. So David, maybe I can just let you explain the
Yeah.
whole concept.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to do something together, and we had multiple ideas. So we sent a couple emails back and forth with a few ideas, but I had this idea to. Well, I mean, what happens to me is I'm studying chess and I bump into some position, and sometimes I don't know how to evaluate it. And the only way for me to learn about that position that really works for me is to play the position against somebody else a couple times. So one thing I said to Lefong was like, I was like, oh, I've got this position. I want to practice it. And he said, that's cool. But what if we made it sort of like a thematic thing where there's like a couple positions that'll teach us a similar theme or idea, and we get someone other than you or me to supply the positions, so that it's not like I've picked positions that I like, or he's picked positions that he like, or something like that. Um so that, and then we agreed on that concept, and we asked Kostya if he would run it for us, and he said yes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Looking forward. I don't do training much, so it's really cool. And when we talk about training, well, you guys and your channel are definitely the one I want to have a collab with. So this is great.
Yeah, we've got a high percentage of people here who want to train and get better, and so Kostya, Jesse, and I have to also model how we would train and how we would try to get better, even if we're not really trying to get better. But we are.
Come on, we're all secretly trying to get better.
Yeah.
David, do you have any GM norms? Have I asked you that? Have you ever tried for GM or?
Yeah, I think I've got 3 norms, but my rating has never been very high, or I mean, not remotely close. So
Uh-huh. Okay.
it's very
Okay.
easy, relatively speaking, for me to have like a good week and a bad week versus consistently being kind of good. It's much easier to occasionally be really good than to always be
Yeah.
kind of good.
Well, I remember when I met you like very, very, very long time ago that you had this crazy style. I don't know if it has changed, and
Yeah.
looking forward to seeing it today.
Yeah. I mean, you also first met me during one of my good weeks, right?
Yes, you're one of your best weeks.
So, it's obvious from the rating I had that that's not how I played every week. But if everything went right, and meeting you
Yeah.
was part of what went right, like being welcomed into your home, staying with you and your family, and the whole atmosphere I had there was part of what allowed me to play really well for a week.
That's fantastic, and glad to train with you again after all those years. So, Kostya, did you just to make sure, are the positions today from any phase of the game, or are we focusing on middle game? Like, what are
Uh,
we expecting today?
yeah, so I've selected 3 middle game positions for you guys
Mm-hmm.
that will all have a similar theme.
Uh-huh.
I think by the third game, it'll definitely become clear what the.
Oh, but
Okay.
at first we won't know what the theme is.
I think even by the first game, you might have an
Okay.
inkling.
Okay.
Second
Okay.
game, I think
And
you'll get anyway.
are we supposed to like, are the positions more or less equal, or one side has a clear path to a win, or is it better that we discover it on our own too?
Um, you know, for Endgame Sensei that we do, which is kind of similar to this, Jesse doesn't really tell us anything, and it's up to
Okay.
us to decide the evaluation. But
Okay.
let me just say for you guys, all 3 positions are very playable. I think close to equal. One side might be better. I'm not really sure. It's also three positions that are just kind of interesting to me to see you guys play out. Like I think I'll get a better understanding from watching you guys play.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
but they'll be balanced, and of course 2 games from you'll guys get 1 game from either side, to keep it fair.
Okay. Well, I am gonna jump into my chess.com layout so people can see maybe what's going on. Are we starting in a specific order? Do you is there a preference to David? Do you have a preference being white or black first? Whatever
No.
you wish.
No, I'll just wait for Coasty to pop a board up for me, and then I'll do what I can with whatever color I get.
Yeah.
True. Because
Actually,
Kostya is the one who's deciding who's black and who's white.
yeah,
Yeah.
but let me let me just flip colors now, and because then you guys will know what side to think about, because you're only at like a couple minutes with the position. I think it'll be better for
Yeah.
you guys if you know what color you're gonna play.
Sure,
It's another,
And
another criticism I have of endgame senseis, that we have to figure out both colors without knowing which
Right,
side.
knowing who
So-
you are.
we will definitely have a few minutes with chat to just talk out loud about our ideas and thoughts, just to prepare ourselves mentally, and then Kostya, you can go ahead and start the game, right?
Mhm.
So right now I am in the board that you shared.
Cool. You guys ready
so
for
this is where we're
the
gonna
first
see-
position?
Yeah. Yes, we are.
Okay, cool. All right, here we go. So actually, first let me draw a color. So I'm just gonna do a random generator.
Wow, so fair.
So David will be 1, Lefong will be 2 for white, and okay, David will be white first game. So Lefong, you'll be black. And let me get the position loaded here for everyone. And this position is going to be black to play. So black will get the first move here. Okay.
Okay. Black gets the first move.
So black to play in this position, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So
right.
Lefong will give you a couple minutes. You let us know when you're ready.
Okay. Actually, do you see this on chess.com if I write test?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm gonna let you know right there when to start it.
Sure.
Is this okay?
Sure. Mhm.
Awesome. So I'm gonna mute the call and we're gonna play back to back this position, right?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. David, best of luck to you.
Yeah, good luck, Lefong.
All right.
Okay, cool. So I'll mute myself, David, and you can just think, and I'll hang out with chat.
Okay, cool.
Okay, yeah, I should be muted. So this is the first position, guys. Like I mentioned, it'll be black to play here. And actually, let me just get the command ready to start the game. Of course, you guys can also, maybe if there's a mod, maybe they can do a poll on what people think of the position. Like white is better, black is better, or is it equal? And yeah, basically I'll be giving these guys a couple minutes to look over the position. First game, David is playing white, Lefong is playing black. Yeah, I'll have to start this game. Sorry guys, just getting the command ready here for the first game. And they're going to be playing 5+5. I'm not sure if we mentioned that, but be playing back-to-back 5+5 games. Liar, you're actually very close about the game, but not correct. But it is a very similar position, because I know the game you're talking about. No, Liar. I mean, honestly, you're very, very close. Like, the difference between this position and the Carlsen game is literally like a couple, like, the structure is exactly the same. So it's, I definitely wouldn't blame you. All right, 1 minute poll, guys. Here we go. David, are you ready to start? Okay, cool. All right, here we go. Oh, didn't work. Hold on.
I was supposed to be white the first game, right?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Let me fix that. My bad. Oh. Second. Feel like Jesse. David, take a game. All right, here we go. Okay, guys, so game has started. And all right, so now let me share with you guys now that the game has started. So this is the game Bronstein Petrosian from way back in the day. And some of you guys are talking about in the chat, this definitely was a King's Indian where black played bishop on g7 takes c3 and gave white this very weak structure. And at the time, if I recall correctly, it was considered a very controversial decision because this bishop was considered very, very strong. But of course, the structure makes things a little bit different. So white has a very, very good darks for bishop now, and a good blockade, but also at the same time it's hard to activate given that black controls this square with the c5 pawn. Now David started, so Lefong played knight f6, which I think is the most natural move in the position. And I tried to choose a position where the first move was kind of obvious so that the game doesn't get aborted if they think for too long. David plays knight f2, which I think is very logical, like improving the piece. And with his next move, David is kind of showing that he has the idea of g4 on his mind. Not necessarily soon, but this is one of white's absolute main plans and breakthroughs in this kind of structure. Does Lefong have draw odds? No, they're gonna play 2 matches, and if it's drawn after 2 games, then it's, or they're gonna play 2 games from each position, and then if it's drawn, it's drawn. It doesn't matter if it's 3-3. Yeah. Yeah, my name is Legion. Actually, I posted the raffle winners in the announcements channel just a bit earlier. Yeah, no worries, no worries. It was like, I don't know, half an hour ago or something. That's right. Petrosian was playing black in this game. So queen e7, queen d2, and now Lefong goes b5. Sorry guys, let me keep it on the live position. So from black's point of view, b5 is definitely a very, very thematic idea. It's also one of black's own pawn breaks. And yeah, very, very logical, because if black is able to take this d5 pawn, like if we get cb5, knight takes d5, this could be very, very dangerous for white, because you're losing a lot of your central pawns. David did take on d5, which to me is surprising, but my feeling is he wants to just open the position for the 2 bishops. So he's kind of surrendering the center, but trying to open lines. Maybe he'll even play for c4 here. I'm not sure. Maybe bishop c4 or rook d1. Yeah, but I mean, it's honestly very double-edged from both sides. I'm not even sure who this favors. I really don't know. Actually, wait, is the players? Oh, I should really. Let me flip the cams around so that we see David on the bottom. I think that's logical. Knight d1 from David. That is a surprising move. Definitely I wasn't considering that one. Again, it makes sense. He wants to recapture on e3 with the knight, where the knight would be very well placed, but yeah, I wasn't expecting that one. Lefong does take the bishop, and David recaptures. Yeah, no eval bars here maxed out, because we like to focus on chess improvement, and I find that having the eval bar is often detrimental, because you might think one thing, then the eval bar is like shooting up and down. It might be wrong, and then you're like confused, like what? Like I thought white is better, now it's saying black is better. I think overall it's more helpful to get the human feeling for the position. Then later, once you've played and analyzed the game, then maybe you can check with the engine and see if you missed stuff, and then, okay, interesting resource here, interesting resource here. Right. Okay, so yeah, structure has definitely shifted last couple of moves. And to me, it feels like white is doing well. Like, I think white's position here is better. Now, of course, it's a blitz game, and to be fair to David, I think Lefong is definitely a stronger blitz player. You know, you see his blitz rating and so on. But objectively, I would say the position is looking nice for white. We have this diagonal available for the queen. Knight and bishop are both actually really well placed. Bishop feels passive on e2, but I would say it's a very nice kind of defensive piece, because it really restricts black in many ways. And also white has this like kind of potential outside passer on the queen side that I think strategically is quite dangerous. Now black is probably thinking about d5, but the problem for black with d5 is like, let's say they even get it. Like right now, I think I'm not sure if it's working tactically, but let's say they're even able to get it in. It's opening up the position, and it's black's king that's kind of more exposed, right? White's king is actually very safe. You know, white hasn't made any huge concessions. Black already did. Not that Lefong did. These concessions were made before Lefong ever had this position. But he, of course, has to deal with the fact that his king is a little bit more exposed, so any opening of the center kind of gives white more inroads. So, yeah, no, J-Lip, basically I'm just trying to say it is very double-edged. Like, there are benefits to playing d5, but there are also drawbacks. So you have to be very careful that the drawbacks don't outweigh the benefits. So queen g7 here from Lefong. I think that's a great square for the queen because it defends the king. It also maybe can put some pressure on g2. So kind of combining capabilities. And yeah, actually, Evan was asking about knight d5. So for me, like, I'm not sure exactly which position, but if, like, let's say here white played it, I would be really unsure about, like, a position like this, where I would be very concerned with white ending up with kind of a bad light square bishop here, and then black having a very solid knight. How did I choose a position? Actually, they asked me to choose 3 positions all along one theme. And I think by the second game, the theme will be fairly clear. In fact, between me and you guys, the second position is actually going to be very similar to the first position, but with some differences. And then the third position will be different, but still similar, kind of in spirit. But yeah, basically they asked me to choose 3 positions on a similar theme, like opposite sides castling, 2 bishops, piece versus 3 pawns. That's right, Pancake. Yeah, they'll play this position twice. This is the first game, and then they'll play 2 more positions, both white and black. Okay, and Lefong goes h5. Yeah, this is another very thematic move for the structure. It not only gives black some space on the king side and maybe some chances, but also restricts white from playing g4. Though the way David has played so far makes me feel like he's not interested in g4 at all. If he was, he would have put this rook on g1 and then started building up like g3, h3. But to me, it seems like David is happy to just keep the positional tension and play for his outside passer. Yeah, he just immediately goes for the trades, takes on g4. Now I would feel like white strategically has a fantastic position here. We have a really nice knight on e3. Black's bishop on e6 is not necessarily terrible, but it is kind of passive and restricted. Definitely not an easy position to win, especially now, you know, the time trouble is kind of a factor. And knight d5, yeah, I don't know. I would have held off on this move. I'm not sure exactly what the reason was for this. I feel like white should maybe have improved the king first or something, or maybe rook b1 just to kind of prepare b6. Knight d5 feels like it's maybe giving away some of white's advantage. Yeah, at first glance, I don't quite like the move. But okay, David playing for the rook endgame here. And if anyone is still better, it's probably still white. But I feel like much easier for black. Much easier for black than it was earlier. Now I feel like it's not particularly easy for either side. Oh, okay, we have draw by repetition. So I'm going to give these guys a few seconds here, and then we'll be starting the next game. Oh, here we go. Yeah, Crow, earlier white had kind of a nice position with the blockade, and even in the rook endgame, I kind of liked white's pressure. So I felt like white is not necessarily sure if white is better, but I would rather have white, I think, than have black in that position. Just because the pass pawn is protected, but it was also blockaded, so very, very hard to move it. Okay, so this game, David is playing black now. Let's flip the board. And he started off with very similar play. He goes knight f6, knight f2, king h8. Again, this is a structure where both sides are kind of making like useful moves here, right? There's not a lot of tactics in the position just yet. It's like both sides are just trying to improve their position. So h3, Lefong also possibly playing for the g4 break, possibly just restricting black from playing knight g4. I'm not sure. Rook g8, king h2. And yeah, if black had time, I think he would love to get h5, h4 in, but that seems to be hard to do right now. As h5, white can just take it. So David goes bishop d7. Another improving move. This bishop might be headed to this diagonal and play with h5. Queen e8 is another thematic move here for sure. Again, helping h5 and also helping b5, which still is one of black's main ideas in the position. In the last game, this b5 break didn't seem to work out for Lefong. And in fact, I really like David's move, actually, knight d1. At first, it was surprising for me, but then like the position he got, I thought was quite nice. So that was kind of an interesting moment in the last game. And here Lefong goes rook g1, right? So here he's clearly playing a different kind of plan. In the previous game, David was happy to build up kind of on the queen side. And oh, there he goes. Yeah, you guys were wondering about knight g4. Well, there it is. Lefong playing rook g1, insinuating that he wants to go g4. Yeah, no, it's a very interesting idea. So yeah, the point is on hg, queen h4 check, knight h3, fg. Black wins the piece back, and white's king looks very exposed. If bishop f2, there's g3 check as well. Yeah. So, of course, Lefong now has the option to just trade without opening up the h-file. He takes that opportunity, but yeah, kind of feels like an achievement for white. Now hg would be kind of a boo-boo after queen h4 check, mate. So feels like black is definitely making some progress. He also has ideas of pushing g3, queen h4, and then sacking. But this is not such a strong plan. Bishop f2 played by white. Yeah, stopping g3. The reason I thought g3 is not necessarily super scary is because on queen h4, white can always go bishop f1. But I think in a blitz game, you don't really want to allow that if you don't have to. So I do like bishop f2, taking control of some dark squares. True. Yeah, can black try this one? I guess you could also try e3 with similar ideas. Now, main advantages for white. I know we've been liking David's play so far, but main advantages, this dark square bishop is really strong. So if this bishop ever awakens, queen e1, h4, it could be devastating for black. Absolutely devastating. And e3, you know, maybe white ignores it, just like moving the bishop, like bishop g3. Yeah. At the same time, black's knight on c7 is still not in the game, right? Like last game, Lefong played b5 to kind of get this knight into play. Here, this knight is still kind of, well, needs to get into the action, either being transferred to the king side or b5 at some point, which is a very powerful move if it comes at the right moment, right? If white is kind of not ready to deal with the opening of the position, then b5 can be very powerful. Yeah. David's spending a lot of time here. So of course, I think that's going to affect the result of the game. And goes for knight e8. So this seems to be aimed at transferring the knight to the f5 square, which I think is a fantastic square for the knight. So if this knight gets to f5, then I definitely start to like black's position. Now it might be hard to achieve. White has to figure out. Black has to make sure not to hang the g4 pawn in the process. But yeah, maybe bringing in the rook was better. Like Evan is saying, like rook a f8. The rook could also be, I'm sure, very useful on the e file. Maybe rook e8, rook e7. But yeah, you only have so much time. Clearly, David spent, he spent, like 2 full minutes on his last 2 moves, which is a lot of time. Indicates that he was kind of choosing between multiple plans. Okay, Lefong goes queen e3, h5. Yeah, because I think knight g7, David is not sure if he can give this g-pawn. So h5, and now, again, like it's black's king that's open, so you have to be very, very careful. Now queen d4 is very fancy, but ends up losing a full piece, because white will give the bishop for black's queen in the end. Oh yeah, also leaving this pawn unprotected, which white can definitely, I think, consider taking. Yeah, bishop f5, queen e3. Lefong does take it, which probably a principled decision. Oh, and just knight g7 from David. He doesn't even bother with bishop f5. Yeah, because he wants to put the knight on this square. He also wants to get the rook in. Not right now. That would be another boo-boo because of queen h7. But see what happened instead. Bishop f5, queen e2, rook a8, queen c2. Now I'd expect David to just reinforce. Well, he doesn't really need to. So black is down a pawn, but strategically, actually, my feeling is that black is doing very well. Because once these bishops get traded, he's going to have a very nice knight on f5. And white's bishop on f2, not really a good piece anymore. Here it's been fully restricted. And that's kind of the key thing about the structure, is that this bishop has no way of getting to the long diagonal, at least not easily. Yeah, so this is kind of the point. If this pawn was back on b2, then I think the position is like really dangerous for black. But here the bishop is kind of blocked in. Now Lefong goes g3. He might have felt like he has to, because otherwise black is playing g3. And yeah, Evan, I agree. Time for h4. Might not work out. David's time is very low, but okay, at least position is, regardless of the result, I think more important is that they play kind of a logical game, and we can maybe learn something about how to play both sides of this position. Yeah, in both games, David had good knight against bad bishop, right? That's kind of interesting. Which I think often happens in these types of positions. Was h4 really necessary? I mean, it depends, right? Because at the same time, on one hand, I said at the same time before giving my first point, on one hand, it's very sharp. On the other hand, David was running out of time and needs to do something. Oh. So this is Lefong's trick. See, this is where the extra time was useful. But knight takes, covering h5 square. But now I think he wants to take. I think his idea was maybe rook takes, but then he can play here. This seems like that might have been blundered by Lefong. I'm not sure. I wasn't watching his camera. But yeah, it looks like it's just winning for black. And David does have the 5-second increment. It is 5 plus 5, which is decent increment. And yeah, position looks completely winning. Okay. Well done, David. Wins the second game. And I think David and Lefong wanted to discuss after each 2 games, so we'll wait for Lefong to join the audio.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, GG's.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
GG's, congrats.
Hey, good games.
Good games. Who wants to go first?
I mean, I think one of the first things that Jesse asks us when he has us practice endgames is he asks us whether we like, white or black better, like what our first guess of the evaluation is. So I wonder if we have the same or different evaluations. Before we played the games, I thought that white was probably slightly better. But then, well, I mean, after playing white, I didn't really feel like I got any chance of any kind. So I would guess maybe it's pretty close to equal. What do you think?
I also originally thought that white was better. I felt that black had pressure to contain white's play on the king side. I was actually worried when I played black that you would go for something
like what you did,
like similar to what I knight f2 h3 g4. And I just felt that in those positions, it seems like black has a space advantage, protected passers on e4. But if white is able to play g4, then pawn structure crumbles. And if the position opens up, the bishops are really, really strong there.
Yeah.
So after our first game, and given the fact that I played on the queen side and the action was more towards the center, I wanted to do something more concrete and really more direct.
Yeah.
But it backfired. And I got attacked on the king side. So I don't know if it was my, my accuracy that was wrong, or the plan that was wrong.
The idea or the execution.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, like the first game, I feel like it was pretty balanced. Like I had maybe a symbolic advantage for white, but never an actual advantage. Did you feel like the first game was pretty?
I definitely felt still on the back foot once I played b5 and I got that backward pawn. Even in the end game when you had the knight versus the bishop, I felt maybe you could press on for a little bit. After you played knight d5 and I traded the bishop versus the knight, I was confident I was going to hold it. But yeah, definitely felt on the back foot a little bit in the first game.
Yeah. I think even with the knight versus bishop, you've got enough space to just kind of bring your king near the middle of the board. Your king can defend either d6 or f5 pretty comfortably because, it's like it's close range. So your king can be a useful defensive piece. And I thought those positions would be better for me if you didn't have h takes g4 in. If you didn't have that, I might have had maybe a small advantage. But the way you made the trade, where you forced me to trade on g4 and you get to play h takes g4, I think there's probably nothing I can do.
Right. I'm obviously less happy about the the second game, just missing the tactical shot knight g4, which was really nice. Obviously, sort of killed my whole play there.
Yeah.
And then I was probably worse. I was hoping for gh3 at some point so I could play g4, but
Yeah.
you did a good job not allowing this.
Yeah. It took me a while to realize that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I just didn't really want to take on h3. I liked keeping the pawn on g4, so I didn't consider g takes h3 very much. But sort of my initial thought was like, oh, if I take on h3, he can just play g3, and the king side's kind of blockaded. Let me look for ways to keep the tension and build my pieces, because the knight on c7 is really bad. Rook on 8's really bad. You're not really attacking if half your pieces aren't in the game. And then as we were playing, it dawned on me that actually in like any case where I take on h3, he might just be planning to play g4, and then I'll be really bad.
Right. So Kostya, do you have so first of all, do you know about those positions you selected? Do you know like the correct plans, or is there sort of a truth to those positions?
My feeling is that the position is or these types of positions are balanced, but they can be easier for white or easier for black sometimes. I'll be honest with you guys, I don't fully understand the structure, which is why I selected it to see you guys play some games and try some different plans. I mean, it was pretty interesting for me as well, because first game I thought when Lefong played b5, I actually thought that looked very interesting, but then David played this move knight d1. That was very surprising for me, but once it was on the board, then I thought actually I liked white's position towards the end. Like you guys were saying before knight d5 in the first game, I thought white is better there. And then second game, I was actually very surprised by black's play with like knight g4 and how strong that turned out to be.
I played like you, Kosti. I played like a King's Indian that game.
Well, yes, you did.
I'm like, my position looks sort of strategically trashy, but I'm going to bring some pieces to the white king.
But okay, you've been playing King's Indian, I think, long before I picked it up. So you.
Well, sure. I was going to say, Kostya, like, I almost thought it was like one of your own games, because I know you're a d4 player. You also play the King's Indian. So
right.
Did this come probably out of an IMSO though, right? This position, or was it a King's Indian where it took on c3?
It was a King's Indian, and if I'm not mistaken, I'll share with you guys. So this is a actually classic game, Bronstein-Petrosian, from candidates 1956. And if I have my story correct, I believe I actually gave you guys, so in the starting position where both you guys played knight f6, the last move was bishop takes c3, bc3. And I think at the time it was considered a very controversial decision by Petrosian to do this. Everyone's like, "Whoa, what are you doing? You can't give up King's Indian bishop." But he held the game and was totally fine. So he kind of showed that this is a very viable structure for black.
So in that game, did white go for an aggressive plan on the king side with h3 g4, or was it more of a solid approach?
Bronstein did play like king h1, rook g1, but I think he never got g4, and the pawn never went past g3, h3.
Right.
And
okay, I see.
In fact, he even built up everything, like g3, knight f2, h3, rook g2. He brought the other rook to g1. Black put all his heavy pieces on the g file, played h5, knight f6, and they agreed to a draw, I guess, when white decided he's not willing to play g4.
Right into the h5 pawn, yeah.
I think h3 and king h2 was like just too much. Maybe I should have been more careful and maybe build the g4 rather than just going for it. Obviously, I didn't see the idea with knight g4 check. Should have been more cautious, but it is indeed the plan though as white, right? Because I don't see really anything else that white can do in this position to sort of
I had a really boring plan. I can tell you what I was going to do, because I was actually surprised that you went so quickly h3. I was like, whoa, I hadn't even really considered doing that as white. what I wanted to do as white was reorganize all the pieces first. So I wanted to play like queen d2, knight f2, knight d1, bishop f2, knight e3, bishop
Uh-huh.
h4, and only then I was going to maybe play rook g1, g4.
Ah, I see.
Um,
Well, the knight on e3 is definitely a very good piece in that position, right? Blockades
yeah,
the pass pawn, and it's just a really nice knight to have
yeah.
on
And the
d3
bishop's
rather than
bad on
h2.
e3 too. So I wanted to rearrange everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
Yeah.
it's interesting. Both games you played like a pawn break that I didn't expect. So my thinking was really sort of like slow and structural, and yours was more dynamic.
Uh-huh.
Because I wanted to improve all white's pieces when I was playing white, and then when I was playing black, I wanted to improve all black's pieces.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And then you're using pawn breaks to like mess up my structure.
Well, again, as black, I felt that I had to do something. Otherwise, you're just going to go h2g4. So I was like, okay, let's counterattack in the center and let's break with b5.
Yeah.
And when I played white, I sort of anticipated whatever I did as black. So I was like, okay, well, let's play fast and let's break the king side.
Yeah.
So yeah, but those were really interesting games, and definitely maybe we'll look it up. We'll look this game up, and
Yeah.
very interesting to play from both sides. I kind of felt comfortable because I'm also a d4 player, and I also play the King's Indian.
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
Osio was nice to me in this first position, selecting a position that was not completely outside my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I wonder if his theme is, positions with the bishop pair where the bishop pair is not that good, because he knows I kind of like the bishop pair. So I wonder.
Oh, okay.
I wonder if that'll be our theme today. We'll see.
Uh-huh. Well,
Guys, I
I'm
tried
ready
to
for,
choose the positions in as without including anything I know about you guys or any kind of personal vendettas or anything.
Okay.
I promise
Great.
the positions are just interesting to me.
It's interesting to
Okay.
coast to. Everyone always thinks it's about them, but not necessarily.
Yeah.
All
You
right,
guys
so
ready
I'm ready.
for
I'm
number
ready
2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll use the same analysis board if that's cool.
Sure.
Yeah, I have it up.
Okay, so next position will be, you guys are about to see it, will be very similar, but some differences. And this
Okay.
is also black to
Oh.
play. So new position.
My
Black to
goodness.
play.
Okay.
Black to play.
It looks so similar. Okay, black to play. And who gets black first?
He's like, but it's completely different because it's a Nimzo. It's not a King's Indian this time.
Let's just flip it. So first game, David will have black and Lefong will have white.
Okay.
And black to play, right?
Black to play.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to mute myself, and David, whenever you want to go, you let him know. Best of luck.
You just tell us when you want to go.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think
I'll
whenever
tell you.
you've introduced the position to, I mean, it doesn't look too different, but
Okay. All right. Awesome.
Cool. Okay, so yeah, guys, very, very similar position. And I remember someone thought the the previous the first position was the game Keimer versus Carlsen, and it wasn't. This position is. So that's why I said it's like, oh, it's very, very similar. So this is actually much more recent game played from 2019 in the, I think it was the Grenke, it was either Grenke or Dortmund. It was a big tournament in Germany. I think Dortmund. Yeah, Dortmund. Yeah, because Keimer qualified for Dortmund by winning the Grenke Open. And then this was his first round game against Magnus. Right, 2019. Yeah, almost 70 years later. So yeah, I realize it's like a very similar structure, but I do have a clear idea here that I'll explain to you guys. The point was I wanted to first have them play the classic, Bronstein Petrosian. Then they kind of see maybe a slightly more modern example. Also, note that both sides here have a little bit more flexibility in how they develop their pieces. So Black's knight on e8 was on c7 in the previous game. Here, Black has more flexibility with the knight on e8. That's right, Carlsen was Black in this position. And White doesn't necessarily have to play bishop e3. He can consider maneuvering his knight here, like David was mentioning. He wanted to put his knight on e3. So a little bit more flexibility for both players. Now they have some experience with the structure. And now that they played the first game, at least they have some experience here as well. Okay, David, ready? Cool. All right, here we go.
Yeah.
And we'll be starting the games. And okay, first game White has, Lefong has White, and David goes knight ef6. So he brings this knight from e8 to f6 rather than to c7. Oh, let me update the score. Yeah, so David did win the first match. Not that it really matters, but I think people often ask. Oh, their score is actually on the their score is listed. So we don't even need the score. So no more score. How about that? No more score. They have their score listed on their next to their player names. So knight ef6 and then queen e1 from Lefong. Queen e1, I think, is intended to bring this knight from d1 to e3, but I could be wrong. But that to me seems like the purpose of the move. David again plays another useful move. King h8, presumably with the idea of just putting the rook on the g file, and then there we see knight d1. And rook g8, yeah, on the board. So in the original game, Magnus ended up winning after a very tough struggle. But of course, Magnus, I think, was actually worse in the game at one point. And so he only won kind of because of his, class over the youngster. But I think at certain points, White was better, maybe winning. Could have made a draw. Let's see what's happening here. So, queen h4, knight f8, knight e3, knight g6, queen h3 from Lefong. So he's putting massive pressure on this f5 pawn. And he was saying in the previous game he felt like he played for this break a little bit too early. So here he's kind of taking his time. And my guess is he wants to go bishop d2, bishop e1, and try to bring the bishop over here at some point, which makes a lot of sense. Of course, on Magnus winning, yeah. Right. Magnus winning should not be a surprise to anyone. White's position looks great. Yeah, I mean, I do like how Lefong has played this one so far. Knight on e3 is beautiful. King h1. So eventually he's going to maybe think about rook g1. Probably not soon because of this pawn. But yeah, g3, rook g1. Exactly. Though when you play g3, of course, this bishop cries a little bit on the inside. They're like, no, why did you play g3? I was going to use that square. I was going to use that diagonal. We do have to keep in mind that this bishop doesn't get out. Again, the structure is very unwelcoming for this dark squared bishop. Yeah. Okay, queen f8 from David. David's not reading the Twitch chat, but you can tell him another time. Rook b1, easy move for white to make. b6, easy response. Just kind of defending the pawn. Nothing special needed. In a classical game, maybe you would think a little bit, oh, do I need to defend the pawn? Do I have some other move? But in Blitz, yeah, you just defend the pawn, save your time and energy, and yeah, keep making moves. So bishop d2. So Lefong is not committed yet. Yeah, e4 definitely very possible, right? Because the bishop is tied down to this one. Yeah. Now knight f5 has been. I'm wondering what was the plan on knight takes f5. I guess black just moves the bishop, the knight. Yeah, and this one is pinned. Maybe even knight takes d5. How's Lefong high rated than David? Well, these are Blitz ratings. So, you know, the titles IM and FM, these are awarded by FIDE, of course, for classical chess, where you have like, you know, some hours to think about the whole game. This is Blitz ratings, where you don't really have more than 5-10 minutes usually. And Lefong is a very, very good Blitz and bullet player. In fact, I think there have been many times where I think generally his rating is higher than mine when it comes to Blitz and bullet. Ziggy, on knight f5, takes knight h4, also looks possible. Yeah, also looks possible. So rook f2, h5. So okay, even though this one is defended, David's still leaving this one hanging. Again, I believe it's because if you take this pawn, it's just going to be problematic. Even queen c8 maybe in that position. It's just like not exactly a boo-boo, but it's pretty killer. It's pretty killer. Does it make sense to put the bishop on h4 before g4? Yeah, I think so. I think so. Right, rook f2 kind of blocks. Okay, g3 played, rook h7, queen f1, h4. King g1. Yeah, I mean g4 would seems like, well, it's a pawn sack. Yeah, hard to play. So king g1 takes queen h6, threatening a boo boo. And queen g2, but now rook comes in. It feels nice for black. You got knight h4 ideas. Seems like white is again kind of scrambling here. So knight f1, knight h4. Maybe queen h6 right before taking. Yeah, that's probably a good point. I'm really sorry. I don't know where this terminology came from. But yeah, if black doesn't take, then white has more chances to play g4. That's true. E3, knight e4, definitely, yeah, very, very sharp idea. The problem is these guys don't really have time. No, Suzuki, I think that's a huge possibility. In fact, we might even see it right now. It still looks actually very, very nice. It's definitely a blitz move. You just chuck the pawn, you go knight e4. Yeah, see? There you go. Very nice find, actually. Beautiful. I mean, it's very tactical, but to me, this feels like a positional sacrifice because we're giving up a pawn just to create a very strong square for the knight. Now, okay, does the knight attack a bunch of stuff tactically once it gets here? Sure, but still. Tactics come from good positions. Oh boy, what happened here? Knight e4, rook h2, takes, king f2. David's position looks fantastic. White's king is weak, but he is in time trouble. I think it's just time to go rook takes e3 and rook check. But ooh, it might not work out in the end actually. So he drops back because problem with takes and rook e8, the king runs king d3, and then black was going to have huge issues on the h file. I think that's why David didn't want to do it. Ooh, now he's trying to unpin. Now, actually, I think the situation's completely turned around. And oh wait, ooh, he hung this one. Yeah, should have taken with the king there, but yeah, actually, the situation was already getting pretty difficult. Okay, well, GG to Lefong. Let me get the second game started here. And here we go. Yeah, big reversal there. I mean, it's kind of what I was saying earlier is that black's king is very open in this position. So even though I think black was probably doing very well there concretely, position opens up and your king is weak. You know, you're all of a sudden the opponent gets tactics against your king. Again, it's a blitz game, so it happens. I think it's not the biggest deal, but the game itself I thought was very interesting. So David starts, instead of queen e1 like Lefong did, he goes queen c2. King h8, knight d1, rook g8, knight e3, knight f8, bishop d2, bishop d7. What does the queen do on c2? Well, not much exactly. But like David said after the first two games, he's just trying to get his pieces out in this kind of position. So he's not looking to just checkmate black immediately with queen e1, queen h4, because there is no mate on the board, right? It's a position where white is trying to slowly build up. So queen c2 is just kind of a very simple multi-purpose move, as Evan is saying in the chat, like connects the rooks. He supports a4 if he wants. He puts a little pressure on here. In fact, this move is helping white with the eventual g4 break, if he would want that, because it's very important to put pressure on the e4 pawn in this kind of position. So, no, nothing wrong with this move. I mean, it's a closed position, right? Most of the pieces aren't really going to be active, you know? It's more about putting your pieces on the best possible squares and eventually looking for some kind of breakthrough, right? In fact, the only heavy piece that I would say is kind of good in this position is black's rook on g8. Every other piece, even if you put white's rook on b1, black plays b6, this rook doesn't really do that much, right? Pawn is defended. At least this one is exerting some pressure, but yeah, in closed positions, you also often have a lot of passive pieces. So bishop e1, David goes for that plan he was kind of talking about previously, but knight g6, not allowing white forget about the f4 pawn. Yeah, could white walk the king over? Sometimes it does happen. In fact, in the Keimer and Carlsen game that this is from, at one point Keimer's king was on e3 with queen still on the board. Like Magnus played queen f6, he goes king d2, and the whole position was pretty crazy. Lefong is muted on purpose. He's actually streaming on his channel. If you guys want to go follow him, actually, I mean that I would encourage you guys to do that. Lefong streams all the time. Oh, my bad. That's not how it works. There we go. And he's a great guy. Super, super nice. Fantastic chess player as well. Great streamer, definitely deserves your follow, and big friend of the dojo. Definitely on the more like entertaining side, but he actually does quite a few instructive streams as well, where he'll play like instructive rapid games against viewers, and he'll do like some chess training, some studying. Yeah, his hair is absolutely legendary. Even better in person, I have to say. Yeah, so he's done quite a bit of instructive content too, because he's like a professional player. Lefong is from Canada, and he's done a lot of coaching. He's done a lot of playing. I think he has multiple IM norms. In fact, at the tournament where I got my final IM norm, Lefong also got a norm in that same tournament, and so we celebrated heavily that night. Okay, let's catch up to the game. So king h1, a4, b6, a5. Again, both sides just kind of improving their position. h3. h5 from black. And yeah, h5 is a very logical move because you really don't want to let white play g4 without at least being able to just blow open the king side, right? So it's kind of like, mutually assured destruction here. If white goes g4, black's like, okay, we'll get a mess, but at least both kings will be open and we'll see who mates who. Yeah, g3 here, logical. I think David's still holding out hope for one day getting his bishop to h4, but that's going to be very hard to achieve. Thanks, Dexy. Appreciate it. Okay, bishop g3. Provoking h4, which is kind of interesting. Because h4 is a move I think black often wants to play just on their own accord. I'm not sure if they necessarily want to play it here, but definitely is possible. Yeah, he does play it. Someone was asking why the view numbers often oscillate. It's because, guys, we're a chess.com partner, so they often put our stream on their site as an embed. So if you're on chess.com, you might sometimes see a stream like in the corner of your page or on your like profile. And so, yeah, that's where we show up. So it's a little bit artificial, I would say. It's not really real viewers, but at the same time, it is helpful because it brings more people in. You know, you see a stream and you're like, oh, 400 people watching, must be must be a cool stream, and then you kind of check it out. So yeah, actually I saw some people are following the channel. Really appreciate that, guys. Welcome to Chess Dojo. We try to do mostly instructive content, although we keep it fun for the most part. And yeah, we appreciate all the follows. We try to do streams every day. We have multiple streamers, including myself and David and Grandmaster Jesse Cry, and then several members of the community as well that often stream on this channel. And yesterday, if you guys missed it, we ended up raising pretty much $11,000 for the Ukraine crisis, which was amazing. I mean, we had tons of contributions from our members. Like I think over 100 people donated. Tons of people donated like lessons and books and stuff as well to be kind of auctioned off for the charity. And then KillerChessTraining.com, they ran a promotion and they ended up raising over $1,000 on their end, or I think exactly 1,000 more or less. So yeah, we ended up doing almost 10K ourselves and then another 1K from Killer Chess Training. Okay, so Queen A2, insinuating he might want to take on B6 at some point, and black goes knight H5. And now this F4 pawn is actually a very serious target, and this one's going to be hard to defend. David might have to snap this off, but that's not exactly something White wants to do here. I mean, sometimes yes, sometimes no, but here it feels like kind of a concession to give up the light squares. Now maybe even B5 feels like a nice idea for black. Although actually no, I take that back immediately, because B5, white takes, bishop takes, white goes C4, and then it's black who's busted because the bishop comes out to this diagonal. And then I think the position would change. So queen F2. So yeah, if black were to play B5 here, then take C4. Yeah, so queen F2. I would say, Gokul fan, it's not as simple. Because white's dark square bishop is also not a great piece. And the bishop on E2, I mean, I feel like it has important jobs in this position, again, of kind of like policing these diagonals. So I'm not sure, but yeah, not sure if white wants to give up the bishop in this position exactly or not. So queen H6. Now F4 still under pressure, but defended for the moment. I mean, I have a feeling the game is going to blow up eventually, but it also feels kind of balanced. Like neither side can do much without opening stuff up. On A takes B6, Gokul, I think David was more worried about rook takes B6, I think. BA5. And that's actually, I think, a very ambitious move, but it makes sense. Lefong wants to get his rook down to B2. and put pressure from all sides. And yeah, now okay, rook a6, but rook b6, he has this one covered. Now it's starting to feel like black is better, especially given that the structure is more or less calcified. This a pawn not really going anywhere, but I do worry about David's king side here. Now, if he takes on f4 right now, again, there's going to be some tactics with this bishop on this diagonal. So I don't know if he can take this one and get away with it. For example, queen takes, then white will take. And oh yeah, also rook on b6 is hanging. Thank you. So rook a b8 from Lefong. Rook takes a7. David wins a pawn. It doesn't really matter as far as the position goes because white's extra pawn is doubled and blocked. Now bishop c8. Rook a8, David looking to trade rooks. Ooh, rook b1. If takes, then not sure. Ooh, queen takes f4. Okay, things are blowing up now. But white still has this trick with knight takes f5. So takes here, yeah, black takes this one, otherwise there would have been a pin, and ooh, we're getting opposite color bishops. I'm sure they'll agree to a draw any second. No, I'm just kidding. At this point now, I'm not even sure who's better. To me, it looks like white has the better game here. Bishop takes d6. Because this pawn is going to be blocked. This pawn is lost. I think it's just winning position for white. I think... I mean, Lefong might save it, of course, but to me it looks really, really difficult. Who just takes this one? He could have pushed d6, yeah, but then I guess black goes e2. Maybe hard to convert. I'm not sure, honestly. Let's just say white has good winning chances. I would definitely hesitate to say that it's totally winning. Whoa, Lefong keeps... Yeah, actually, wait. David is playing... I think David is playing this very, very well. Actually, yeah, grabbing this pawn was 100% correct. Because if black traded rooks here and takes here, then white just goes bishop g5, and this is just completely lost. It's too many pawns. So Lefong could not trade rooks. But now white's just up a million pawns, and yeah, this is just technically winning position. Now white just needs to find a nice setup. And yeah, this is going to be a beautiful construction here. This is what I often call like an anchored bishop, when the bishop is defended by a pawn and defending the pawn itself. Grandmaster Marcos calls this a crystal, which I think is also a good way to think about it. Because it's just unbreakable, right? You can't do anything with this bishop and pawn. And it's very nice, not just for the time scramble, because you know you're not going to blunder the bishop, but just in general. The bishop is very solid here. It controls a bunch of useful squares on the board. And yeah, it's basically just a technical position. White has everything defended. He just needs to slowly improve without hanging something. Now he's going to repeat the position, maybe move the king up this way. And yeah, there's still, of course, some saving chances for black, but again, it's pretty much losing position. That's right. Yeah, I need to be more like Jesse, but it's not fair to do it to Lefong because Jesse is the one. But yeah, maybe if I ever watch Jesse and David play, I'll bring out some more abuse. Yeah. Okay, g4. Making huge progress. Is there dojo talks today? Yes, actually, we'll be doing dojo talks at 12 p.m. Pacific time. So in about 1.5 hours. And we'll be discussing FIDE's basically their new announcement. We were going to talk about what they should do about the situation, but after their announcement, we'll be discussing whether they did enough and whether Karyakin deserves sanctions and so on and so forth. But no endgame sensei today, so we'll just be doing the dojo talks. Yeah, I think Bishop e3 would have been lights out because they trade rooks and then white has too many pawns there. Oh, it looks like looks like game is done. All right, we'll just wait for Lefong.
All right, I'm back. GG's again.
Hello.
Hey, yeah, I probably should have lost both games because the first game was a disaster.
The first game I was going great for me, and
Yeah.
I thought the white queen on the king side didn't end up helping you, so that's why I left my queen on the second rank in the second game, and I didn't copy that maneuver. Like when you first played it, I thought, oh, that looks interesting. Bring the queen into those weak squares, then you've got an extra piece in the area. And then it felt like she just got in the way.
Yeah, I mean, the queen looked strong on h3, but eventually I'm just blocking my own h pawn, and you just did a great job pushing h5, rook h7, knight g4, and okay, you probably have a win there in the time scramble.
Yeah. Instead of taking on g3 with my knight, I could have maybe taken with the rook.
Oh, sack the exchange, right?
Yeah, well, because the queen's trapped on h1, so you have to sack right back on h4. I could just go for that endgame.
Yeah.
I don't know that. I mean, it's probably like a small advantage for me, but I don't know that I'm winning at any point. So, I don't know.
Kostya, when you do a commentary, do you have the eval bar on or
Nope.
or no? Okay.
No, I have
the
no
right
idea.
way to do it, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh my God, David misses main in 17 or something, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you guys missed stuff, but it wasn't
Only
like...
if Kostya sees it on his own.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think the second game was closer than the first game.
Yeah.
The second game was actually really interesting. Your pawn break, your minority attack, or whatever you call it, like
Sure.
a4, a5. Well, like it was really, really annoying because at some point, whenever we trade those pawns, my pawn on a7 is just so weak, and yeah, it seemed like I had some pressure on f4, but I didn't feel good about my position somehow.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I thought we might just be like locked and I might not be able to make any progress, but I was like hoping that it was uncomfortable for you and that something would come up.
Yeah. Kostya, did you see anything well, especially in the second game, like what did you think about that position when I managed to play knight h5 and then I got in that position? Do you think it's still unpleasant for black?
I thought when you got like rook b2 in, I thought you were actually like overtaking the initiative. But of course it's hard after rook a6 because white's getting that counterplay. But to me it looked like the forcing bishop takes h5 out of white. I thought that was a good concession.
Interesting. I was always willing to make that trade, and I thought it didn't change things too much. I mean, I had a concern when you played rook b2 that I might be in trouble. It might not be working out for me. But I knew the one thing I had was rook a6, and you were basically going to have to sack your d6 pawn if you wanted to like try to beat white. and I'm not
Yeah.
sure exactly how you should do it or if you should do it. But after you play Rook B6, then I think I'm okay.
Well, don't I have no choice, right? When you play Rook A6, unless okay, I can play 97, but then I'm just releasing all the pressure I have
Yeah.
on F4,
I mean, maybe you
and
can
then
go
you're just gonna
Queen
double
F.
up.
Maybe you can go Rook A6, Queen F4.
Then you trade queens and your bishop is hanging, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, bishop C1, Rook B1. Oh, so your bishop is not doing well there if you trade queens.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't see. I don't know why I didn't even consider Queen F4. Oh, can you go Rook D6 though? Rook
I
D6, Rook
can,
D2,
yeah.
Rook D7.
Yeah, that would be good for me. You would probably defend your bishop instead of trading bishops there. You would probably
Okay,
play
yeah.
like bishop E8 or Rook
E8,
D8
yeah.
looks bad.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But yeah,
Yeah,
on Queen F4, I could trade and play Rook D6 instead of taking the knight. Or on Queen F4, the other move I have is I could play maybe knight takes F5 with every. No, it doesn't work.
Your queen is hanging, right?
Yeah,
Your king's on H1.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, looking back, Queen F4 is definitely the best try there then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have done that.
Or I mean, maybe instead of Rook B2, you could try Rook B6 first, maybe, just to double, or possibly play A6 somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe double, and then you're always ready to come in with like, because Rook B1 also is kind of an annoying move for white
Mm-hmm.
because of the F4 pawn.
Yeah. So if we compare the two positions, because I think this is what's interesting, do you guys think that white or black was doing better in one of the two positions?
When Kostya first gave us the second position, I thought, white's doing a little bit better than in the other one. It's easier to just put the knight on E3 really quickly. But then as we played this game, I was liking black's position both games. Like, I've been feeling like it's comfortably equal for black. So my current feeling actually is actually I kind of like the black potential in these positions.
Yeah, me too. So based on the 4 games that we've played so far, I've always felt more comfortable as black. Well, it's easy to say because I'm getting crushed every time with white as well, so that doesn't help. Like I'm getting crushed on the king side, like both games. Maybe I have to start attacking on the queen side or something. Maybe I should just be solid.
It's very hard to come up with a plan for white because I mean, because it's like your move is kind of G4, but it seems like black's got a lot of resources against it. And I suppose that's what Kostya told us about that first Petrosian game. is white put every single piece behind G4 and then decided not to play it.
Do you guys think that those training positions also could help to figure out what is your playing style and in what positions you're more comfortable? Because I have a feeling that I've been blundering way more, or I've been playing with the wrong ideas way more with white than with the black pieces.
Right. And with black, you've played like the ideas that you feel good about after you play them.
Yeah, regardless of the results. It's just that I felt it was easier and more natural for me to play with the black pieces. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, that makes sense to me, Lefong. I see you as like a very good counterpuncher because you're like a big Benoni guy. And Benoni is all about finding counterplay at the right moment, even though you're kind of strategically worse. So it's definitely possible you feel more comfortable when you're not the one like trying to prove something, I guess.
Possibly, yeah. Okay. And do you guys believe that to become a good chess player, you have to have you have to have both, right? You can't just be a counterpuncher, for an example, right? Like so maybe this is a thing I have to improve. Like right here with white, it's all about not only coming up with a plan, but executing it. And maybe I've been struggling so far to do this as white, so it's definitely a good challenge for me when I play those positions with the white pieces.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. but it's definitely really, really interesting. And I guess if the third position is similar, then
Yeah, we'll get we'll get even
definitely.
a little bit better at it.
Yeah, I promise the
exactly.
third one there's it's not the same structure.
Like the third one
Okay,
is like
all
this,
right.
but White's pawn is on A3.
Exactly.
Do you guys want to hear a little bit about this game, this position? Where it comes
Sure.
from?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So this was taken from the game between Vincent Keimer against Carlsen from Grenke 2019. So much more
recent.
much more modern example. And yeah, in the starting position that you guys played, Magnus had just taken on C3. And yeah, here I felt like, okay, you guys have a little bit more flexibility from both sides with how you want to place your pieces. Like black doesn't have to put the knight on C7, and white doesn't have to put the bishop on E3. And the way that game played, Magnus actually went knight DF6, bishop E3, knight G7. White played queen E1, bishop D7, knight D1. And then Magnus went ahead and plays bishop A4 here, H3, and bishop takes D1. So he gives the second bishop too.
So yeah, Magnus wanted to make sure that Vincent couldn't put his knight on E3, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Now, to be fair, white was definitely better. But okay, position was complicated, and Magnus ended up winning. But for sure, I felt like he's just trying to imbalance things quite a bit against his young opponent.
And this might be almost a dumb question, but do you guys think Magnus was aware of this 56 game?
Of course, and he knew what year it was from.
Yeah. Also, that's why I wanted to start with that game, to give you guys kind of the sense like you're Magnus. Like, you know the classic, now you're playing the live position. Okay.
I think I would be embarrassed if Magnus saw the games that I just played. But no, it's great. But it definitely helps to know the classics, right? It helps to know like what was played, and especially the plans and where people went wrong before you, and going forward, what are the right plans. So, but you tell me that white was still a little bit better here, right?
Yeah, no, objectively, I think it was equal, but Keimer, I think, outplayed Magnus in the first part of their game. And he built up a nice advantage. He got G4 in, G5, and he was much better.
So, those positions, do they come from like a sandwich, or?
No, I don't think so, actually. Let's see. The first one was it was actually a King's Indian where black plays very early C5, so it's more like Benoni structure. Or I mean the Carlsen game, the one you just played. And then the first game, that was a classic King's Indian with knight BD7, rook E1.
Okay. Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Ready for position number 3?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll put it on the board, and you guys will have a couple of minutes. Here we go. This one is going to be white to play. So white to move here.
White to move. Okay. And
who's
you
white?
Yeah.
And let's flip it again. So we'll have David playing white first game, Lefong playing black.
Okay. So I'm gonna mute and let you know when to start.
Sounds good.
Best of luck.
You too.
Alrighty, guys. So this is the third position. This is also comes from a pretty recent game. I would imagine someone in chat knows this game. Yeah, very good, Suzuki. Very good. And this was kind of a, well, yeah, again, relatively recent game played in, I think, last year's Wyconze tournament. I have the game. I can just check the year. I'm pretty sure. 2021. Yeah, Tata Steel. So January of last year. So over a year ago, this game was played, or about a year ago. And this is the game Watashik against Caruana. And Black's last exchange here was they played bishop takes c3. I don't want to highlight it because they'll see it. White played queen takes c3. And black's last move is queen f6, offering the queen trade. I think that's the one Jordan won. Yeah. Raffle went well, Cartier. I posted the winners in Discord. But yeah, it was fun. We did it at the end of the stream last night. So this position, of course, different to the ones before. With similar elements, we have 2 bishops against 2 knights. But of course, white did not have to ruin their structure to get the 2 bishops, right? No double pawns. But the surprising thing is that black is actually more or less okay in this position. Like Caruana ended up winning this game as black quite handedly. And okay, looks like they're ready. Ready, David?
No, but we gotta go.
Here we go. So David is white this first game. And yeah, he has a big choice here, obviously, of whether or not to trade queens. And it's not really an obvious decision, I would say. I've seen Billy on the street, but I didn't reference it intentionally. I don't even know what I said. Unemployed nuke, this will be the last position. So they're going to play this from both sides. No, Evan, totally unintentional. So David avoids a trade with queen to b3. Yeah, after queen f6, knight f6, the e-pawn does seem hard to defend. Yeah, that's a good point, guys. So not a particularly tough decision for white to avoid the queen trade. So he ends up putting it on b3. I think in the original game, Watashik played queen c1. And then Fabi played knight c5. And in the past, before this game, you know, people thought like you just can't do this with black. He gave up the bishop on f3 earlier in this game, and then he gave up the bishop on c3. Generally, you can't give up the 2 bishops in an open position because you're just going to get killed. But here it's really not so simple because oh, whoops. I'll just start the game again. I think Lefong timed out there. Yeah, that auto abort is annoying, to say the least. Yeah, I think there might even be a way with the commands, but I'm not sure. Why queen b3 rather than queen c2? Well, my guess is David wants to put pressure on the b-pawn, but Lefong with a very bold move here, knight c5, just willing to sack the pawn in exchange for white's dark square bishop, so David can take on b7, but then he is kind of giving up some dark squares. And this kind of activity is annoying. You don't really want to allow this one. I'm not totally sure. There's some e5s, but that's Lefong's idea at least. So this is what white has to contend with. And it's very tough in a game. You know, your opponent sacks a pawn. It's like, can I take it or not? You don't really want to, but at the same time, you might feel like you have to. True, black has rook b8. I think it's still a pawn sack because white will take on c7, and black will win one pawn back, but technically hasn't won the second pawn, and there's like rook d6 and stuff. So, I mean, it's to me it looks sacrificial. But David just goes back queen c2. I think he didn't like just that whole line with knight d4, or knight e5 also was possible. And then it's very passive for white. I'm not really sure. It's a tough position to judge. Yeah, right now we can see like queen c2 probably was better than than queen b3, but of course David didn't have a ton of time, so I think he wasn't expecting knight c5 from Lefong. But Lefong, strong player, he does it anyway. And yeah, now queen is on c2. David does like the bishop pair. No, I don't think Karyakin has responded. In fact, I haven't seen any tweets from him in like 24 hours. Oh, he just sent out some tweets. Oh, so we'll see. Karyakin just released a tweet saying everything was sponsored by Russia, and with its decisions, FIDE will worsen the situation of chess players all over the world. So he's kind of criticizing FIDE a bit. It's all good. We will be discussing it on Dojo Talks later. No, FN. I have some relatives in Ukraine, but thankfully most of my folks are here. I believe my uncle is over there with his family. He actually used to live here in the States and then immigrated back. So I am definitely worried about him. But yeah, thankfully most people are. I mean, not that it matters, just seeing what's happening is obviously incredibly, just mind-bogglingly depressive. But at least we have each other here, and the community has definitely stepped up. You know, it's not often that the chess world is like, you know, so closely affected by a global crisis, but in this case definitely feels like it was. So, queen e7, rook fe1, and e5. So this game is proceeding a bit slower than the previous ones because it's not as closed a position. So it's not like both sides can just make a bunch of easy improving moves. Here it's like a lot of concrete factors in the position. You got to make sure the e-pawn is well supported. Okay, why not bishop h6 instead of bishop d2? I think with bishop d2, the idea is to transfer the bishop to the long diagonal. Although after knight d4, it looks like David had to play queen c3. And I'm not sure if this was part of the plan, but I guess if black takes, queen takes, he still gets his bishop to c3. Yeah, e4 pawn is going to be hanging here, but, well, the question is if anything can be done with the pin. And I'm not sure. It's kind of hard to say. Like, let's say queen takes f3, knight e4, queen e3, and then threatening f3. Yeah, from right, I think there's a way to do that. So queen f3 on the board. Yeah, David doesn't want to weaken the structure. I think there's this program called Arena that lets you run whatever positions or simulations you want. I'm sure there are other programs as well. So queen f4. So he's playing for the pin. If black tries queen f6, then there's rook takes e4. So kind of a difficult situation here for black. He has to figure it out. Maybe queen e5? Seems possible. Look at bishop c1 instead of bishop d2 earlier. I don't really understand what's the idea, but it looks like a move. Maybe with b3, bishop b2, sure. But let's get back to time scramble. Queen e5 on the board. Queen h6. Stops knight d4, that's fair. Hey Chris, yeah, send me a friend request on Discord, so I can get your address and stuff for the raffle. If we need it, yeah, I think you won. I think you won one of the books, so we'll need like your address and name and stuff. But yeah, send me a friend request on Discord, and then we'll be able to DM. Okay, queen takes b2. Bishop c1. Not looking good for white here. If he's not able to create some, yeah, this one's hanging. If he's not able to create any drama here, he's just down too many pawns. So kind of collapsed here a little bit for David. But kudos to Lefong for taking this pawn, because a lot of people would be scared to take this one in view of this situation. But he realized he can get away with it concretely. Okay, king h1, knight g3 played, takes, king h2. Queen e5, controlling the key diagonal, and that's resigns. Okay, let's start the next game here. We're gonna flip colors. So yeah, GG to Lefong there. I think he played a very good game. And next game will be starting momentarily. If white had just traded on e5, rook takes e5, and then f3, black goes knight takes d2, takes. I'm not sure if white ends up with any compensation for the pawn there, Douglas. It seems like white might just be worse. I thought it might be playable, but I actually don't really see anything concrete. All right, Lefong improves on David's game, goes queen c2. Very natural improvement, given that queen b3 was, in the previous game, was met strongly with knight c5. And white wasn't willing to take that one. So queen c2. And knight c5 on the board. What was the theme? The theme was bishop takes c3 in the king's Indian. Yeah, I guess it kind of had to do with the bishop pair as well, although that wasn't really my main my main intention. But it was just to look at several positions where black goes bishop takes c3. Two positions where the pawns got doubled, and it felt like very obvious positional compensation for black. One position where it doesn't seem like white has any serious strategic deficiencies, but nevertheless the position is, I believe, quite easy for black to play. Bishop c5, rook d7, I think maybe... problem is you really don't want to give up the dark squared bishop because you're left with this idiot on f3. So maybe black goes queen e5, knight d4, maybe just knight e5 right away. Even just rook c8, I kind of feel like, okay, black defends the pawn, and then this knight is just extremely strong. So it's kind of like short-lived initiative for white, if that makes sense. Unless white can get some e5 in, but doesn't seem likely. Yeah. So here, a5. Yeah, very logical move. In the original game, Caruana did win, although it was kind of an equal position. Kind of interesting that he did end up winning it as black. Sorry, gotta charge my phone here. My phone's been blowing up all night. I have no idea why. Tons and tons of notifications. No idea what happened. Yeah, farm raid. If there was a good opportunity to sack the rook for knight and pawn, I think white would go for it. But I don't think that's easy to set up here, because black's knights are very solid and black has very few weaknesses in their structure. The only kind of plan white has, and maybe we'll see it in this game, a4. So David is playing against this exact idea, is to bring the bishop over to this diagonal. So here we might see bishop d2. That was someone's suggestion from the last game, not to allow knight d4. So here again, it's like, that's kind of the issue for white. He would really like to maneuver this one, but hard to make that happen without allowing counterplay from black. Yeah, g3, bishop f2 would be nice to achieve. Hard though, okay, with the queen on f6, but I think in general this bishop would kind of, yeah, prefer to be elsewhere rather than kind of a big pawn on f3. David thinking here. I should actually flip it. Sorry. We can see it from David's side. Knight b4. So challenging the rook on d5. And this is an exchange. Hard to say if white gets enough here. Rook c5, I think, was possible. But then knight comes back to c6. Yeah, I'm not sure. So rook d2. David brings the knight back. Repeats once. Rook a6 takes. So white here has won a pawn, but at the cost of the dark squared bishop. I do think black has certain compensation here after rook b6 exactly, and the knight is going to be jumping in on the dark squares here very soon. Rook b5, maybe takes knight d4 now. Yeah, e5, I'm not sure if white ever had a chance, because knight e5. Knight d4 immediately also possible, yeah, as we see it on the board there. Why not knight f3? I don't know. I think that was definitely possible. Yeah, he could have taken on f3 with check. e5. Now I feel like you definitely got to take. Take and queen d4 or something. Queen b4. Queen c1. Yeah, I don't know. I think in blitz at least you got to take the bishop. You got to weaken the structure and take your chances there. And then I think black has perfectly fine compensation for the pawn, just because white's king would be very weak. Now it's unclear even which minor piece is better. The knight on d4 looks great, but the bishop on d5 I think is no less strong. In fact, I think this is just a stronger piece in general, given that it controls more squares. Okay, we get the queen trade. I like the Lefong offered the queen trade there on c3. He doesn't care about the double pawns because it's more important to take the d4 square away from the knight. So we get takes, f4, b3. And now white is more or less healthy pawn up. Still some chances for black, but feels like it's yeah, nice position for white. Knight c5 here. It's still not easy, but okay, I think white is the one that's playing for 2 results here. Rook d1, rook d8. And David's just going to be living on the dark squares now with his king. Bishop f3 offering the rook trade. That's a tough choice for black because you're probably losing either way now. Without the rook trade, white's rook would have gone in super active there, and that didn't seem fun. Here you have drawing chances, but now it's just a very, very healthy extra pawn for white. And he has easy targets on the king side, on queen side too. So to me, it looks very, very dangerous. And great winning chances for white. Yeah, he's got knight c5 check, so this one is defended. And David, he's kind of doing the right thing strategically. He's trying to trade off as many pawns as possible. If you could trade off everything, trade this one for this one, trade h pawn for g pawn, and trade the queen side, then okay, white's extra pawn there would be meaningless. In fact, David could just give his knight for one of white's last pawns, and this h pawn, of course, with the light square bishop, is not winning. The very well-known theoretical draw. So that's kind of black's main drawing hope in this position. And I'm sure both players are, I'm not sure if they're aware of it, but I would imagine David is already thinking about, okay, this is kind of my only chance. Trade off the queen side, sack the knight for the f pawn, and then you can't lose. But trading the queen side off is very easy to say and very hard to achieve. F5, king e5. Now Lefong is looking to just win with the f pawn, and yeah, feels like it's gotta be losing. Now, like, it's time to give up the knight for the pawn, but black is never saving that. You know, instead of f6, by the way, I kind of like king d6 here. I thought this would be maybe a little bit cleaner, keeping both of the pieces restricted, but they have seconds, not a big deal. Bishop f5. Still looks very, very winning for white. Yeah, cutting the knight. And black, I don't think, is going to be able to stop the pawn. Yeah, now he can just trade, and easy winning king and pawn endgame. So well played by Lefong. I mean, both games. This game he ends up winning with really nice technique. Probably David could have saved it earlier, but okay, that's chess. Well, what are we going to get a classic triangulation here? Oh man. Oh, let's see if Lefong knows the classics. King f8, king f4. Come on, Lefong. Oh, beautiful, the triangulation. Oh, you gotta love it. You gotta love it. Now king e5, and now zugzwang for black because white is able to get the king in and can push. And it's G. Yeah, it's resigns there. Could he have, I feel like he could have just pushed f7 here, I think. But then h5, so yeah. Nice technique at the end there by Lefong. And yeah, he should be joining us here in just a sec.
GG's.
Hey, good games, Lefong.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
good
thank
games,
you.
guys.
Thanks for allowing me the triangulation
That was beautiful.
educational content.
Yeah.
I I think it's really close there. I think I prefer black. What do you guys think?
Um,
Did you prefer white?
I think yeah, I think if white starts with like queen c2 or queen c1, white's probably still slightly better.
And did you see like a plan for me? Because it seems like okay, you could have repeated and just get a draw there because I feel I was just waiting, right? I
Yeah,
just
but knight b4 is actually a mistake. You can just play e5 there. That's why I didn't repeat.
so e5 if you just go queen somewhere. Queen d8 or queen
Mhm.
g7. What happens there?
Let me see.
I wasn't sure. Yeah. So the whole point of e5 is that if you take with a rook, I take queen takes bishop d2, right? And I win the knight.
Yeah.
Okay. I just felt in general that as white, my bishop on f3 is stuck. And honestly, I played queen b1 because I had no moves. And after playing queen b1, I just couldn't come up with a plan. I couldn't play g3. I couldn't play bishop e2. I couldn't move the dark square bishop because of knight d4. So I wasn't sure what to do with white there.
Yeah. So e5, queen d8.
Because if I go ed6, you take on d5, and the knight is guarding c7 too, like in case I want to do some funny things.
Yeah. And if the
wasn't too
rook
sure.
retreats, then you take with the rook.
Yeah. Kostya, did you see anything there for one of us, either of us?
I wasn't sure. We were kind of considering rook takes c5 after knight b4. Maybe after e5 as well, it's possible. Not really sure if it's enough, but could be an idea.
Yeah. And then take on c5 with the bishop, not on b7, even though normally you'd want to take b7.
So we're thinking e5, queen d8,
Yeah.
and bishop c5.
Okay, so
Rook takes c5, pawn
Oh.
c5, bishop c5.
Oh, right.
Then after
yeah.
knight c6, after knight c6, the e5 pawn is still loose.
Yeah, it's not really obvious if it's enough for white.
So if I understand the position correctly, in the initial position, white is declining a queen trade because they believe in the space advantage, the bishop pair. They just want to have attacking chances, and
Well, also,
that's
well, also queen f6, knight f6, and the pawn's just hanging.
Oh yeah, true.
Not
Yeah,
a good
yeah.
move.
Yeah. I didn't even get there.
Okay.
But, yeah. But after keeping queens on, I just felt both of us as white couldn't expand. Like of course, if you had a pawn on f4 and better defense on e4 or even a pawn on f3 and just I just feel like black, I felt it was easier to play as black. That's my general feeling. I don't know if the evaluation is concretely better for black, but just felt that the two knights here were nice to play with. In the first game, it was actually crazy. I don't know if you had enough compensation when you sacked the pawn, David, with your bishop.
I should have taken with my g pawn.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm not even sure if black should go for that position because the light squared bishop is kind of bad. So to simplify to the one bishop, I wasn't even sure. But then I risked everything on a line I hadn't really had time to calculate.
Well, the only reason I did it is because I was expecting g takes. I just don't know if it was worth taking that bishop for doubling your pawns. So, Kose, any insight on this position and which game it came from?
Yeah, so this was actually a game played last year in Tata Steel between Watashek as white and Caruana as black.
I called it.
Mm-hmm.
I actually called it. Yeah, yeah. I said it was familiar, but I thought Caruana, like, because I saw that game, it was so beautiful. I thought Caruana had the move and played Queen takes C3 or something, and just because I remember Caruana won a really nice game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see.
I was thinking maybe Queen C1 would be the first move
Ah,
here. When I played
okay.
when I played Queen B3, it was just like a total blunder, but at least I learned something from it.
Right, I think knight c5
So
was
so
good for
Queen
black. Yeah,
B3. Sorry, Kosa?
I think knight c5 there was definitely the right move for black in response.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And they just get too much play, right? If you go for the
Yeah.
B7 pawn. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's just miserable.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. In the game, Watashek did play Queen c1, although I don't think this is best. I think after knight c5, I think it's essentially very similar. To the position that you guys had. And yeah, to me, it feels like objectively it's about equal, but actually kind of feels easier for black to play. And then Caruana ended up winning that game, even though, again, objectively, white has many ways to get like an equal position. But yeah, somehow it just like it seems like a practically difficult position for white to handle. The eval is just like, zeros everywhere, but I think you guys both kind of found like the right setup with knight c5 and a5. That seemed right to me.
Uh-huh. But I'm still wondering, as white, was there an easier setup to play? Like, is Queen C1 the right? Like, how am I supposed to set up as white? Like, am I supposed to just go Queen C2 or Queen C1 and just sit there and with the rooks, just rook E1 and be solid? Because
I think Queen C1, because the option of Bishop G5 taking the black queen off of your F3 bishop might allow you to play G3 Bishop G2 in some cases. So I think it's just and you've got two light squared pawns, right? So if you think of your queen as being part bishop, she's going to be better off on the dark squares, not on the light squares, if you can, right? If she doesn't have to defend those pawns right now, then
Right.
Queen C1, I don't know, gives some more options, I think.
yeah. Did you feel that it was easier to play for white or for black, David?
It's hard to say because I blundered so badly on the first move that
Oh,
my game
okay.
with white felt really miserable, right? Like
Uh-huh.
because
Yeah.
of that 1 minute time limit on the first move, I played Queen B3 kind of quickly. And then you played knight c5 and I just thought like, oh well, that's terrible, and then I never I never enjoyed my position after that moment.
Yeah.
And with black, I mean, I also found the position difficult to play. I would say for me, it's all three positions Kostya picked are kind of hard for me to play with white and with black.
Nice.
Well,
But
that means they were good positions then
yeah,
for training purposes, right?
I would think normally I would want to play white and I would want to play Queen C1 and I would be like a little more comfortable with white. But
Uh-huh.
but if it's all
Yeah.
dead equal, then it's probably just as hard for me to play with either color.
Uh-huh. I see. So Kosa, you select, so was the theme bishops versus knights today?
No, actually, I thought about that, but no, the theme was just bishop takes c3 in the King's
The
Indian.
King's Indian.
Ah, okay, that was really precise. Okay. Okay. Okay, bishop c3 in the King's Indian.
Yeah.
Well,
Which
I was
does-
gonna say King's Indian too, right?
Which
So-
does basically always give white the bishop pair. So
True.
your theme was right too.
I mean, you might inspire me to look for variations where I can take on c3 in the King's Indian, but it's not.
Yeah.
Is it that common? I haven't seen it that many times.
It's not common, I would say.
Uh-huh.
But it does come up, and all three games came from like different variations, so it seems to be a very common theme overall.
Well, in the last one, you're not even getting double pawns for giving up your bishop against knight.
Yeah, no, I mean that's what made Caruana's play so surprising. Of course, he had like it was a big novelty that he just went into this position at all. Given that the classic understanding is like, okay, if you double white's pawns, then it's good compensation for black. But here, he didn't even double the pawns.
Yeah. Did it come from the bishop g4 line?
Right.
The classical variation?
Right.
Oh, because I have looked at it a little bit. Yeah, I've looked at it a little bit, and I think that's why I found out about this game. And I think I also saw it, not necessarily live, but I was impressed by this game. I remember. I don't know if there were some analysis or article written after this game. Probably, right? Because it's a beautiful game.
Yeah, definitely made headlines. Because Watoshik doesn't lose with white very often, and relatively quickly too.
Right. I see. Okay. Listen, I really had fun playing those positions. I think it's really good for training. Definitely gonna look at those and analyze. Maybe have a deeper look at those positions. No, I think this is a great initiative by you guys. So Endgame Sensei is a similar concept, but with endgames.
But always with endgame positions. So like the kind of position that we got at move 20 or whatever in some of these games, instead you would just start there.
Yeah, though I guess big difference is we play with a 30-second increment on that show to kind of simulate like a classical game.
Yeah. So I had some comments in chat that they thought the cam control was a little bit fast. It's just the time limit I had today. I actually have a lesson soon. But I wanted to get more positions in too. But we can definitely play around with the time control and format if we do this in the future. I do agree though, like 5+5 is a bit quick for us to really understand the position. For an example, David, like Queen B3, who was forced to play it like really quickly.
Yeah.
Or maybe have more time at least for the first move, something like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what your chat thinks. Some of the people in my chat would have preferred a longer time control.
Yeah, it depends. Like with a longer time control, you can get a little more into each game, but with a shorter time control, you can play more games. And sometimes, you learn more just by getting in a few more games with a certain position. Like you could even do the same thing. You play the position 4 times instead of 2 times, right? I mean, there would be enough for us to try out with the positions Kostya picked that we could go, 4 games per position if we wanted to and get deeper into them that way versus having more time on the clock.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed this. Are you guys gonna keep on going?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna probably just talk to my chat, wrap things up, and send you over a raid. Guys, that was fantastic. Like, really, thank you so much for doing this, and gonna hit you guys up soon for another collab.
All right. Thanks, Lefong. Thanks for the games.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Take care.
Thanks, man.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
And Kostya, thanks for giving us the positions and commenting the whole thing for.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
Let's see, our cams are going to be messed up a little bit. Let me fix that. So we're doing Dojo Talks in about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And just hide that one.
So we could do like Dojo eats breakfast first.
Yeah, I would like to get a snack before that. There we go. So we might have to put the stream on break for a little bit.
No, it's okay. I'll do something.
You'll hang out? Okay.
Yeah, I'll hang out.
Let's see. So you have the analysis board so I can leave that open on the stream.
Okay.
Or whatever you want to do. We can set it up quickly.
That's fine. Looks like I can probably. Oh, I can't set up anything on this analysis board.
Yeah,
you want to give me
Yes.
control of it, and then you can go take a break.
There we go.
All right. All right. We'll see if Jesse can correctly guess what you have for your snack today.
Sounds good.
All right. I'll grab some knight and pawn endgame.
All right, cool. So yeah, guys, David will be keeping the stream going, and then I'll be back in about 25 minutes or so for the talks.
All right, so let's clear this board, put some pieces on the board. So it's like this, okay? So in this position here, with black to play, oh wait, my board got messed up. 1 second, let me see if I can clean up my board. Oh, you guys don't see my board view anyway. I don't need it. Okay, cool. So in this position here, black takes advantage of their own badly placed king to defend this position. It looks like black's in Zugzwang, right? Like you move your knight somewhere, white gets g6. Black's pretty tied up, but black actually saves the game with knight g6 based on their own badly placed king. And that's a draw then. It means this knight can just sort of keep its post forever. Okay, that's the first position here. Here's the next one. Knight a3, king d5, pawn f5, g3, knight h2. This is white to play. And the black king is off to the side in bad position. But the real issue for white is that the black king is in good position to catch this pawn. If you push it, it's gone. If you bring your king towards it, then black can probably just bring the knight back. Well, actually, king f4, you could consider. If the knight comes back, you could take it, right? So it can't get back. You guys don't see the position? Tesla, you don't see the knight and pawn endgame? Hey, Lefong again. Thanks for the raid. Greetings. Greetings, raiders. You guys still see the old position? Well, I've changed the position. You saw the first one I set up, but not the second one? That's really weird. Okay, if I delete everything on the board, does that work? Do you see this position that I'm now setting up? Whoa, weird. No, you don't see anything I'm doing now. Well, that's really problematic. Before I try and figure out this problem, folks, let me just say what's coming up next. Kostya's just taking a short break, right? When he comes back, Jesse's going to join us, and we're going to be doing our talk show, which is called Dojo Talks. That's coming up in about 20 minutes. Okay. That said, let me see if I can figure out what's wrong with this board. Let me refresh. Get my analysis board. Put this here. This here. Black knight here. Here. Legal moves. White to play. Do you guys see anything of a new position, or is it not changing at all? No change? Well, that's very awkward. Let's see, what can we do if we can't change the board position? I mean, obviously I'm changing it on my end. And the analysis board is bugging out because it's not showing up on Kostya's end. I do have control of the board elliptic. On my side, I'm able to switch around. Kostya switched me to being the owner of the board and him the student. So yeah, we could do a blindfold lesson of some kind. Yeah, too bad the first position was too simple, huh? Let me try loading a new fen. Let's see if it lets me load a fen. Maybe that it'll respond to. Let's just try that before we sort of give up on what's going on here. So if I go to one thing is capturing a part of a screen. Yep. I'm actually not the one streaming Rid Shoot, so but I think it's the chess.com analysis board that's probably at fault. But how about this? Do you guys see this? Did I switch it to a king and pawn ending? I'm just seeing if pacing fence will do anything. Nope, nothing. Okay, well, then we've only really got two choices. We can shoot the breeze. We can chat about random stuff. I can answer any random questions you guys have, or we can do a blindfold exercise. What do you want? You guys want to work on blindfold chess or talk? A French lesson? Sure, I can teach you some words of French if you like, if that's a popular request. That is true, Invasion, yeah. Favorite Karyakin game. All right, looks like yes to blindfold, huh? Kyle, advice would be try playing a game at home first, where you play 30 plus 30 time control, write down your moves on a score sheet, try and sort of replicate what the OTB situation will be like. But I mean, the main advice is just have fun, you know, just have fun. That should do it. All right, but the vote is for some blindfold chess. So let's go over a blindfold game. Okay, so you're gonna have to ignore this knight and pawn that are on the board. We're gonna try playing through an 8-move game in our heads without being able to see the pieces. Okay, so it starts with e4 and then b6. Can you see arrows when I draw arrows, at least? For those who might struggle a little bit with notation, arrows might help a little bit. You can't even see arrows. You're completely on your own. All right. Good luck, everybody. I'm going to post the moves in chat, just so you can read them if that helps you. And then we're going to try and go through these together. So e4 b6. So white's got a pawn on the central light square on e4. And black plays b6, which prepares to play bishop b7 and attack the pawn on e4. When white plays e4, the next thing they want to do is play d4. And broadly speaking, black defenses are usually based on trying to control d4 and prevent white from playing it, or trying to counterattack the e4 square. So b6 is going to fall into openings that try and take advantage of e4 being an undefended pawn and trying to make something of it. Other openings like that include the French, the center counter or Scandinavian, the Caro-Kann, and the Aljechin. So there are several openings based on counterattacking e4. So e4, b6, white just plays d4 anyway, confident that they'll be able to defend the pawn on e4, and black plays bishop b7. So at this point, whether or not you can see a chessboard in your head, Black has played a queenside fianchetto, and in some way we know that the bishop on b7 is on the long light square diagonal attacking the pawn on e4. Is there anybody who's struggling to see this position? Because if so, we can talk about how to visualize this position clearly, or how to keep track of this position. If everybody's got this position pretty clearly, we can keep going with this game. Also, you're a quarter of the way through. Yeah, e4, b6, d4, bishop b7. So we want to know that pawn on e4 is attacked and hanging. So if you've got a problem, speak up quick and I'll try and help you out. Otherwise, I'm going to assume that everybody's got that position, which is great. G2 is protected by a bishop, yeah. The only thing that's really undefended and threatened is the pawn on e4. So can you guys list every move that white could play that would defend the pawn on e4? So black's threatening it. What's every possible move white could play to stop bishop takes e4? Knight c3 is one option. Yep. A knight on c3 defends e4. Bishop d3 is another option. Knight to d2 will also defend the e4 pawn, and f3 will also defend the e4 pawn. Very good. Very good. Now, we also have our queen available, right? So folks have found, I think, 4 squares. 4 squares where the queen could go to defend the pawn on e4, right? So queen d3, queen e2, queen f3, and queen g4. Almost every queen move on a light square is going to defend the pawn on e4. And then there are 2 pawn moves that, 2 other pawn moves that I don't know if they were all mentioned, but I think Evan said you could play e4, e5. That would prevent your pawn from being taken, right? That's what white plays in the Alyekin's defense against knight f6. And as Jaliptic is now saying, d5 is another pawn move that would prevent e4. Those moves are very, very different, right? e5 sort of avoiding capture and opening up the long diagonal, and d5 fighting for the long diagonal and blocking that bishop on b7 and saying, well, e4 might not be that strong, but d5 is a really strong square for white. And what preference do you all have between these options? We got 4 queen moves. We've got f3. We've got e5, d5, knight c3, knight d2, and bishop d3. Most of you liking bishop to d3. We're playing a chess game blindfolded together, Light Adventurer, while waiting for our talk show to start in 10 minutes. Okay, looks like pretty much everybody's liking bishop d3. I usually personally have played knight c3 in this position. One of my first wins ever against a master was in that line with knight c3. So I have fond memories of it, and I've kept playing it. It's also my style to just kind of slam my knight into the center of the board. So as people have pointed out, if you put your knight on c3, it's going to give black the option of quickly playing e6, bishop b4. And then the knight won't defend e4 anymore, and you might get doubled pawns, etc. But yeah, I just like to sort of slam my knights out in the middle of the board. If my opponent wants to trade a bishop for him, bless their heart, they're welcome to. So, but anyway, in this game, bishop d3 was played, as most of you prefer. So bishop d3 is played. And at this point, the long diagonal, if you can name every piece on the long diagonal from a8 to h1, that's a good way to check if you really know what's going on here. So, oh, my board is back. Wow, that took a while. All right, so what's all on this diagonal? Good question for you all. Rook a8, bishop b7, e4, G2, rook H1. Okay, bishop B7, E4, G2. That's correct. That's correct. Okay. And one of the most interesting features of this position is that the bishop on B7 has a hidden attack on the pawn on G2. There's a pawn on E4 in the way, right? There's a hidden attack of the bishop B7 on the pawn on G2 and then the rook on H1. So black decided to take advantage of that tactically and played F5. Okay. So now the moves are B6, bishop B7, F5 for black, and D4, E4, bishop D3 for white. Makes sense so far? So black's idea is by attacking the E pawn twice, that they're going to get white to play E5 or E takes F5 or something like that, and then they will play bishop takes G2 and trap the rook on H1. Now, this is a pretty terrible idea for black, as it turns out. For one thing, white could simply defend the pawn on E4 with another piece, and then F5 wouldn't be a great move. That's not what white did in this game. But looking at this F5 move, which doesn't develop a piece and, you know, weakens some squares around the king with the dream of winning a pawn on E4, it seems to me that if white just played knight C3 now, and you compare the quality of the moves F5 and knight C3, which move would you rather have played? Would you like to be white or black? Right? So I would think that that would favor white. So I don't like this F5 move at all. But the important thing here is if you can keep track of the tactics that are possible on this board as we go through the game. So black plays F5 and white's going to simply take that pawn. E takes F5. Just wins it. The extra pawn supported by the bishop. And so the knight's still on B1. We haven't played knight C3. Remember that. All we've got is D4, bishop D3, and a pawn on F5 for white. And all black has a pawn on B6 and a bishop B7. So black's going to say, well, I mean, I had a reason for playing F5, this pawn sack. It's bishop takes G2. Black's going to take on G2. And you're now halfway through this entire game. So when you lose the picture while going through a game, Jailer, can you remember the moves and start back over at the beginning? I can't remember positions, but I can remember moves. So every time I get lost, I can just go back to the beginning and then move back through the moves to catch up again. And this is a useful thing to bring up for anybody, right? Because for all I know, half of you might be on work calls. So you can see if you remember the moves on your own and if you can play back through them. And I sometimes do this if I lose track of where one piece is, right? Maybe not the whole position, but just where one piece is. I'm like, where is the white knight on from B1, right? And then I would just go back through the moves and I don't have to like think about every single move. I just have to look for a move of that knight. You see what I mean? So I'm like E4, I don't need to think about it. E4, B6, D4, bishop B7, bishop D3, F5, takes on F5, takes on G2. Yeah, there were no moves with the knight on B1. So now I know where it is, right? I'm not picturing those moves or trying to figure them out. I'm just looking for the last move of that one knight. That's an easier, lower effort way of just figuring out one piece. If there's just one piece you've lost track of. Okay, Oski Boy has figured out what the end of this game is. Very cool. So, yeah, Jaliptic's advice is also good. If anyone is ever doing this exercise and you just get stuck at one move, it keeps getting fuzzy for you there. Just make sure that the position one move before that was really, really clear. Check that position for yourself 2 or 3 times and then see if you can advance another move forward. How hard would it be to remember the positions that I had in the earlier match if instead of having the board set up for us, Kosti maybe just told us where all the pieces are, CPWN? That would actually be a somewhat tricky exercise for me, even though I have, some facility with, acquired facility with blindfold chess. I don't think it comes naturally to me since I can't see a chessboard. So it's something that I've obviously found a way to do that's not natural. But I would say that would be pretty difficult. What I would have to do is I would have to sort of piece together different chunks of the position and how they work together. And once I have it, then I would have it, then I wouldn't forget it. But it would be the task of, depending how fast Kostya tells us where the pieces are, sometimes I struggle with getting into a new position. And if those positions were totally random, then I would probably be, it would probably be nigh impossible for me. Those positions were logical, so I could put them into chunks after a little bit, right? I could say like, oh, it's a King's Indian pawn structure, blah, blah, blah. And just like figure out a bunch of like big chunks and then store it as, maybe 6 pieces of information instead of 28 or 26, if it were 1 piece of info for every piece. But if I had to store it as 26 pieces of info, then if the pieces are on random squares, it's really hard for me to do that really quickly. Okay. But if the pieces are on logical squares, I would be able to do it, but it would be an effort. All right, so here we are. White has taken on F5, Black's taken on G2. So folks, is there any saving the rook on H1 from the bishop on G2? Any move to save it? Can anybody help that rook? The rook doesn't matter, you think? So there's already a black bishop on G2. So if you play F3, black can still take your rook. It'll maybe trap their bishop if you want to catch the bishop. But it won't save the rook, right? Yeah, that's correct, Trippy Schnippy. So the rook can't get out, right? There's a pawn on H2, knight on G1, bishop's trapping this rook. Useful questions. Just ask yourself where things are. If you feel like this is fuzzy, just ask yourself where things are. Often you'll find out that you know where they are. For example, where is White's A1 rook? A1. Where's White's A2 pawn? A2. Where's White's B2 pawn? B2. Where's White's C2 pawn? C2. Hasn't moved, right? The only pawns White's moved were the 2 center pawns, and the G pawn's been captured, right? So we know White's played D4 and E4 takes F5. So White's pawns are at A2, B2, C2, D4, F5, F2, H2. Okay, so Kyle Boone, what's on E7 right now? Thanks for the raid, Vlad. And please introduce yourself to us. They've never moved that pawn. That's right. Black has moved 2 total pawns, Kyle. They've played B6 and they've played F5, and the F5 pawn's been captured. So Black's pawn structure is A7, B6, C7, D7, E7, G7, H7. Right? Okay, so you all are correct. Queen H5 check is what white's going to play. I was just giving it some time so that we could do a few of the kind of practice questions that you can ask yourselves if you're ever trying to play a game through in your head and can't follow it. So just giving a little bit of time to that. So Queen H5 check is correct. And after Queen H5 check, tell me what's all around the black king. Like what's on D8? His waifu. That's right. What's on D7? Unmoved pawn. E7. Unmoved pawn. F7, nothing, just like Trippy is saying, right? And on F8, the unmoved bishop, which still can't move. Perfect, right? So Queen H5 check. Black's only got one move, right? Because they're in check. Hey, Vlad, thanks. Who are you? What do you stream? Tell us something. We'd love to know whether our viewers would enjoy your stream, whether we should recommend you, tell people about you, raid you, what have you. You should practice doing it, Kyle, without the board at some point. Maybe what you want to do is like work with a game using your board and then work that same game without your board. Maybe go from doing your visualization with the board to then repeating the same stuff without the board and see if you can do it that way. This game you could use as an example, Kyle, because it's an 8-move game. So it's really like a reasonably contained piece. If you get it down, you'll be able to try it in the harder way. A random peepee guy who streams chess. Okay, cool. Like us. Pretty high FIDE rating. 2,500 online. Nice. So you do like training of yours online? Like you let people watch how you, I don't know, study your games or improve your tactics or something like that? All right, so Queen H5 check. Black only has one legal move, right? The king can't move anywhere, so they have to block with the G pawn. G6. Yeah, I've invited you to self-promote, so please do tell us that. So do you ever teach your lessons to your students on your stream? Because we do that. I recommend it. If you're a streamer and a chess coach, I recommend you stream your lessons. So G6 here. And that's sort of just barely blocking the checkmate. So how many times is G6 attacked and how many times is G6 defended? That's my next question, chat. Cool. And is your name Vladimir, or are you just a fan of Kramnik's? Okay, 3 attackers, 1 defender. Depending on whether you count the bishop that's X-raying. Very good.
He could be a fan of Artemiev.
Oh, he could be Artemiev. That's true.
No, it sounds like
could be a fan of Artemiev. Yeah. Okay, cool. So there's a pawn on H7 that's defending G6. That's it. Otherwise, White's got a bishop on D3, a pawn on F5, and a queen on H5. Now, folks, if you removed White's pawn from F5, which one person had forgotten the pawn on F5, if you took the pawn off of F5, so it was only attacked by the bishop and the queen, Does anybody know a checkmating combination for white in that position? Oopsie for Kostya. Well, I've lost to 1900 also as an IM.
Oh, was that the U.S. amateur team? Because that's...
It was somewhere 3 to 4 years ago. It's not Vlad who beat you, but he saw you lose to somebody.
Yeah. Just, I don't lose to 1900s very often, so I remember most of the games.
Yeah, there should only be a couple times it's happened.
It was either U.S. amateur team or this, like, open tournament where I entered, like, the 2-day section, and then I lost, like, the first G60 game. And I think I just withdrew. I just went home. I'm like, okay, GG.
Like, that's enough. No tournament for me.
Yeah, I needed like a bye later as well. So I was like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, U.S. amateur.
You guys are right. So queen G6 or bishop G6, either way, black would have one defender, and then the second piece would come in, and it would just be checkmate against the king. Simple mating pattern, really. So the pawn on F5 here is actually protecting black from mate. Now, it may look like it devastates black in this game, but actually know that black's fate would have been even worse if white didn't have a pawn on F5 here. So white plays pawn takes G6. And I guess you all know that black shouldn't take back with the H pawn because of checkmate. So what black figured here was that the queen on H5 was going to checkmate them. So black played knight F6. Now, if white plays like G7 or pawn takes H7, check from the queen, how's black planning to avoid mate? What legal moves does black even have at their disposal after G7 or G takes H7? Knight takes H5. That's right. As Jaliptic says, the only defense black's prepared is that they're going to take the queen that's checkmating you, right? So what white figured out in the game was, and some of you know this pattern where you go like G7, you sack your queen because it's check, and then you take on H8 and you get a new queen plus you eat the rook. But here, white found something even better, which is pawn takes H7, and then after knight takes queen, bishop to G6. And if you made it that far, you've made it to the end of the game. Woo! And just in time, because the third sensei is here.
David, did you know that's actually that's the Greco game, right? I didn't catch the beginning. Just It's actually one of the first games I have annotated in my like little collection of classics.
Nice. Yeah. That'll spare me the trouble.
Yeah.
Although I think that game I could probably annotate in under 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It wouldn't take me as long as usual.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good game to memorize.
Yeah. Yeah, so that game can be a good game for memorizing. It can be a good game for practicing like blindfold or visualization, which is what we were doing since for a moment we didn't have control of that board.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, shall we switch over?
All right. Good night, Vlad. Everybody else, we're going to now switch shows. Hopefully you were successful in this blindfold exercise, and now we're going to do Dojo Talks.
Yeah, so I'm going to restart the stream here, guys, so we can get a new notification out. And I think we'll talk for like 2 seconds on our end, just to say hi, and then we'll be back.